We're already at 16 screws, and I haven't even got anything really taken off yet. That was all just so I could get access to this. And there is the groove in the plate. Hello folks, welcome to Netcruzer RC. TLR 22 5.0 DC Elite. Time to do some maintenance on it. Alright, so the TLR 22 5.0 is a really nice two-wheel drive racing car, and it's a fairly modern buggy. The 5.0 came out in, I believe, 2019, but it's one of the only new two-wheel drive race cars that does not have an easy access split open case rear differential. So I'm going to show you how I'm getting into it. I don't know if it's the most efficient way. I did try and look up if there's a quick way to do it. I couldn't find anything. Anything that's been put out there by TLR drivers that I've seen is about how to break in your diff, how to build the diff. They don't show you how to get your diff out after you've already built your car, because I think they don't want to show the downside of this platform, which is that they never built in any kind of easy access rear differential into this car. Hopefully in the next version they do that, because every other major RC racing brand is doing that except for TLR. I'm going to show you what screws I have taken out of this already, and just I'm kind of halfway there, I think. There's a couple things I'm going to do for maintenance on it to service it, and then we'll make some small tune-up changes. One of the things I'm going to do, and I've been holding off on, is adding weight, because I knew I wanted to get the differential out, because I've been racing on this for probably 8 months. I think I started racing this in January or February of 2020, and then we had the shutdown for the pandemic for a month or two, and then I've been racing it on and on and on every week. From when the tracks reopened around maybe late March, I don't know, it's all a blur now, but I've been racing it every week up until now. So this diff is definitely due to come out. I noticed it is a little bit notchy. It does have some issues, so I'm sure that there's grooves in the plates. But I also want to do some changes to add weight to the car, and that's by a brass C-block. So I'm going to install this TLR 334065 brass C-block, and in order to put this in, you have to take the transmission out. And then since I have to take the transmission out, I'm also going to do the diff service. There is a way that you can reuse most of the components that are in your diff. You can sand the rings, and you can polish your balls again. And I'm going to show you how worn my diff rings are and my balls are. Oh, these are actually the thrust washers. So my main diff balls I'm going to leave. Rings is what gets worn out. But my thrust balls, the thrust washer balls, when I first built this car, I had one ball roll away, so I'm only on 5 instead of 6. So I'm going to do the full replacement of the thrust washer balls, and that's TLR 232087. And those ones are the tungsten carbide. You can get ceramic, you can get some other materials. I'm choosing to go with the tungsten carbide. Let me pull the camera in closer and I'll show you where I am with this car. Briefly going to count to you how many screws I've already taken out of this thing. 2 to get the wing off. That gave me access to get at these 2 screws here, and the 2 in the front you could already get to. So that's 6 screws to get this top deck off, as well as 2 nuts to get the shocks off of this piece. Just set that aside with all the screws inside of it. So wing and that came off, and then that would allow this all to fall down and pull out. My axles, I just gave a rudimentary cleanup here. My cars are not the cleanest race cars in the world. People who show no dirt, that is not realistic to RC racing. RC racing is dirty. Even when you don't race on dirt, it's dirty. You're never going to have your car looking brand spanking new every time, unless that's all you do is clean the thing. Anyway, with 6 screws to get that top plate off, and then getting this assembly off, which this is the Elite, so this is the metal piece, but it was 2 screws on the back of this through this little mount. Those ones were really in there really hard, really tight. I actually had one stripped, so I had to use my micro grab it extractor to get that one out. I'll put the link in the description for the micro grab it extractor, or the link to the video where I explain that, because that's a great tool. So those are the 2 screws that went into the back of the diff case. These 2 screws are the C-block from underneath. I'll flip it over, I'll show you in a minute. But screws are the C-block, these 2 screws are the D-block, and then there's also 2 more screws in front of it. And then you have the little teeny tiny little 050 screws. I don't know why TLR uses these. Those stupid little ones, and you need that to get your whole hinge pin assembly out. We're already at 16 screws, and I haven't even got anything really taken off yet. With those 16 screws out, most of those were from this area here. The little 050s or 1.3 millimeters are here. I think that's a stupid design. I do not like that those little teeny tiny screws are in there. I don't see a point to them. It's a legacy thing from old TLR 22s. I don't like it. Sorry if this is sounding a little bit negative, but the kind of a theme with TLR is that they are not the greatest cars for maintenance. Working on them is a bit of a pain in the butt. Hopefully you don't have to do it very often, and I've had great luck with this car. As I said, I've raced it all year, and I have not broken one single part on this. Anyway, 16 screws. That let me get these blocks loose. I had to remove the screw here for the fan assembly. To move the fan assembly out, which I also had to take the rear wheels off. So the rear wheels are off, and I just put the nut back on the hubs. 16 screws and 4 nuts so far, just to get it to this point. Then from here, I should be able to lift up the transmission and slip this whole hinge pin assembly and arm assembly out. Then I need to figure out how do I get this transmission out of here. I know this screw has to come out, but then there's going to be this one here is also going to hold it in place, and this one is from this side, but I don't think you can get at. And yeah, and that one you can't get at because the spur gear's in the way. So this is where I mean that it's not a great design, because every other two-wheel drive race car that's at this class right now has a split case diff, and this one should have it too, but they don't. And it would be just something as simple as being able to lift the top of this off and just picking your diff out, because literally I now have to take this whole assembly out of here and split this case because they did not design a rear diff easy access. Either the back of it could have been split, or it could have been split this way, or it could have been split this way, but TLR doesn't do a split diff case at all. Well, they split it this way, but in order to open it up, you got to take the whole thing off. So I'm going to keep working on it, and I'll show you how we get. Okay, I should be able to lift this transmission up and out of here, and then slip this whole assembly out. Yeah, okay. That let me get my arms and everything off. Let's say I'm out of race, and I blow the rear diff, and I have to replace it. How long does that take? I don't know. I mean, imagine you get good at it after a while. I almost didn't buy this car because it didn't have an easy access rear diff, but I liked everything else about it, so I went with it anyway. But I knew this was going to be a problem, and I'm showing you it now. So screw 17 is this really long one that goes all the way through the diff case, and then that lets you take this little guard off. And that didn't really do much for me though, because you still have a screw going through here that holds this whole thing into place. So if I have to take the whole slipper assembly off, I think I do, in order to get at that screw that sits in here behind. I'm now taking the nut off of the slipper assembly, the HD slipper, and I've got to make sure that I keep all of this in its exact order. Okay, and then I should be able to pull that. Let me just set this aside. So that's all the washers and rings and stuff. Put that down in the way it goes, and then I should be able to pull this off. Yep. Okay, and pulling that back. I remember that being a little bit difficult to get this aligned when I first built it. My pads look in great shape. Actually, well, there's a bit of wear on the inside. So that's how much wear is on my slipper pad on the inside. Doing that was actually fairly simple, and then that lets me get at that screw, because I need to get at that screw. How am I going to remember that? So that goes with that. Pull that off. Oh, there's a screw underneath that. Okay. Then we've got another screw, another 2 screws. Dang it. 18, 19. We're probably going to be 20 plus screws into this to get this diff out. Alright, after taking out screw 19, which is the 2 here, I think I can now cheat a little with some bending. This is probably not the recommended method, but now I think I can slip this whole transmission out of here. I have to lift up on this motor brace while pulling back. Yep, there we go. Transmission is out. And then now there'll be some other screws somewhere. Yep, there's another one right there. So it'll be screw 20, screw 21, and then I should be able to split this case apart. Just be aware of that. If you were considering the TLR 22 and you're going to do a lot of maintenance, that's crazy. It should be 8 screws max, not 22. Before splitting this diff case apart, I would recommend marking your screws, because once you get it apart and you've got your diff out and you're working on your diff, you're going to forget. You're going to forget what hole do you put those 2 screws that are left into, because there's so many holes in this diff case you won't know. Marked it 1 and 2. And then the rest of the stuff I can figure out from there, just based on how I've laid out my parts. Unless I miscounted, It's 22 screws. So these are my last 2 screws, and I marked them as you saw, and now I'm ready to split the case. So I'm just popping that out now, and there we go. That was all just so I could get access to this. So I can take this apart. So let's get the ball differential open, and we'll take a look inside. The transmission looks really clean. It's nice and sealed, I guess. Good. It does feel a little notchy, kind of scratchy. Not bad, but it could be better. Now I got to figure out how to get inside of this, because I don't remember. I'm going to have to scrape out some dirt that gets packed down in the cups, because one of these sides has an Allen key, and then I'll unscrew it and the whole thing will pop apart. Cleaning as I go, I've been using a toothbrush for the most part. It's actually the side I didn't think it was from. The side where I could see a hole was not it. It's the side that had the most dirt packed in it. It's a 2 mil down the bottom, and I should be able to crack it open. Whoop. Yeah, loosening that off now. Move that aside. I just had this for cleaning out some dirt. I don't really see a lot of wear. There's no dirt. Just wiping off the grease. And there is the groove in the plate. So that is what kind of catches on the balls. And it's minor, but that's what the balls ride on. And that little bit of micro difference is enough where it'll catch the balls and you'll feel a little bit of a grind and inconsistency. So what a lot of people do is they just flip the plate, which I could do, because the other side of the plate will be perfect. So a lot of people just end up doing that, and you flip the plate, which really I should probably do instead of putting new plates on. Backside rides on this difference of materials, and there's a little bit of a lip. So even on the backside there's a bit of a groove. Lift this off. The balls should hold in there by the grease if you put enough in there to begin with. This is the silicone diff grease. And you get a ton of this with your kit, so you have plenty enough to rebuild your diff many times. So just keep that for redoing it. And now this is the back side, or well, I don't know what side this is, but this is the other side. This side actually has more of a pronounced groove in it. You can't feel it as much as I thought you would. You see it, you visualize it more. It's that microscopic little difference in the material is all it takes. So here's the other side. I just wiped it. That side looks pretty good. Here, depending on what angle you look at it, you can really notice the groove. This is the side that the ball had raced on for the past 8 months. There's your groove. That's why you want to service your diffs, which is why you want easy access to your diffs, which is why I'm still ranting about this car not having easy access. Because this is a maintenance item that you should be doing on an easy access car often. But because this is such of a pain, you know, I'll do it whenever I have to. To get at the thrust washer, you just have to press on this screw, and that will move this whole thrust washer assembly up and out of here. And then I can rebuild that. Because I don't see any balls on it left at all, so they're all stuck down in there. I'll have to fish them out and rebuild that. I need to get the thrust washer balls out of here. I'm just going to start fishing them out, I guess. Try to. There's 3. I think I had 5 instead of the 6. There we go. There's my 5 balls. And I had 1 missing. So I'll be able to rebuild this with the proper amount of thrust balls. I'm going to learn from my prior mistakes. Here's all my new thrust balls and washers, and I'm going to just douse these in the grease now so that they stay where they need to be, because they get coated in the black grease anyway. So I'm just going to give them a liberal coating of it now so that I don't lose any. Same with this. And then we'll just build it on the build it on the screw, and it should be much easier. I do think this is kind of another silly design. Like, why do you have to build your own ball bearing for thrust washers? Apparently, I did ask some of this to some of my racer friends, and any of the ones that are captured don't last as long, and they cause more friction. So that's why you have to build these with individual balls yourself. I'm just going to try and put this whole goop of balls on here. All 6 of them. Probably way too much grease, but now I've got so much grease I can't see all my balls. So I've got all my balls on here, and I'm just going to try and slip it down inside. All 6 this time. I already put the other side of the washer down inside of here, and now I'm slipping on the one side with the 6 balls, and then I'll just push this down in. Nice. And then I can cover it up with a little plastic cup. Let me scrape out. Oh, I lost a ball. Oh, I lost more than that. I lost 2 balls. Reset. Dang it. Alright, I now have all 6 balls down in there. I know you cannot see that very well, but they are. And now I'll just put this side down through, hopefully without knocking any of them out of place. Oh, I did it. Yeah, I did. Seems good. Okay. The little cover on. Then the little plastic thing just seats over top and holds it all into place. So that's thrust washer rebuild complete. I think I'm just going to decide to flip the rings. If you inspect them, it is highly noticeable the side that it was running on versus the side that it wasn't. So I'm just going to flip them and run them on the other side. And I'm conflicted if I want to take each one of these balls out and clean them. I guess I should. So poke each one out, wipe it off, and then reinsert. That's probably the best thing to do. Relubed the rings. I flipped them and relubed the rings. I'm just going to plop them down onto the balls now. Try and keep my grubby mitts off them as much as possible. One thing I didn't pay attention to was the directional way that I was running this gear. Whoops. Although it doesn't look like there's too much wear on the teeth, I don't think it's going to matter, but I do not remember what side was what. Tighten it up. Oh, way smoother. Wow, it's way smoother already. Nice. Man, you guys need feel-o-vision, because that's nice and smooth now. I did look at a picture of which way I had this in before for the tightening access. I believe it's from this side, so anyway, or at least that's the way I had it before. I also just re-greased all the gears. So that's all re-greased, put back together in the correct orientation. Just clamp the transmission back together. Make sure that there's no dirt or anything in there. It's all clean. Good. Screw the transmission back together. Now that I have my ball differential serviced and back in the transmission case, I'm going to work on the other part of this maintenance project, which was the tuning, which is to add the brass weight to the C block of the car. So that's going to add some weight right here, right in front of the rear wheels. It's going to just change the handling a little bit. We'll see if it improves it. Hopefully it does. And in order to do that, I have to replace this metal plate with the brass. All there is to it. So I'll just pop that out, pop it in, put it in the chassis, reassembly. This is the new brass hinge pin brace, and that's fine. It's easy to install in the chassis, but I got to get the pills out of the old one. It's about halfway there right now. They're not coming easy. So yeah, you got to get those out and transfer them. Or I could put new ones in. Alright, the car is almost back together. Just a couple more things to bolt up, but there's one slight little tuning change I'm going to make. Oh yeah, the brass C block is now in. You can't even see it. There it is. A little bit of brass. Can you see it? I'm not sure if you can see it, but a little bit of brass in there, a little bit of weight. It's an extra 20 grams right at that C block. So should be a good little spot. Anyway, there's one last tuning thing I'm going to change when I rebuild it, which is my camber gain. Just going to make one small change to start, which is to move this ball cup from the furthest outside position to one inside. There's 4 holes on the top of this, and there's also corresponding 4 holes on the inside I'm going to leave the inside where it is, which is in the middle, and move the outside in, which should give me a bit more camber gain, and then I'll try that on the track, and we'll see how we go from there. The reason I'm doing this now instead of after it's all built, there's three main things that I don't like about the TLR 22 5.0. No easy access rear diff. Steering access is really tight. There's very little room to work in here. I had to like sand it out to get it to clear the bell cranks on the upper chassis brace. I don't like that design. And the ball cups don't have hold access. So when they're actually installed on something, you can't adjust it. You have to always pop the ball cup off to adjust something. If you want to change how high this is or where this is in this piece, you have to take the ball cup off every time. I don't know why TLR can't make hold ball cups that don't pop off, and why they can't make an easy access rear diff. The front design, you know, maybe a future chassis will allow that to have a bit more room for steering and stuff. But yeah, those are really nitpicky things on the TLR two-wheel drive cars. Even the new four-wheel drive doesn't have hold ball cups. I don't know why they don't. I think they tried at one point, but they kept popping off, so they gave up. Slight change of plans. I'm actually changing it to spot position B instead of C. Whoa, cheapers. Because all the setup sheets that I looked at, a lot of people that are running it in the laydown position, which is the stock's positioning on this inner, run it in B on the outer in medium to low pack clay. So I'm going to try that, see how that hooks up. The TLR 22 5.0 DC Elite is done. The few changes that I've made to this, I think we're ready to go. I still have to make a couple little adjustments to my camber, my rear wheel camber, because I did shorten those links. Anytime that you shorten the links, that's going to change. It's going to change the rear wheel camber a little bit. So I'm going to have to adjust that a little. I'll get that sorted out once I've got it on the floor with the battery, and we're ready to go. Alright guys, so if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you're new on here, subscribe. If you want to talk to me, leave a comment down below. And as always, thanks for watching. TLR 22 5.0 DC Elite with the changes. I'll show it on the track and see if what I made is better or worse. Alright guys, thanks for watching.